Hey guys, it's Tatas Tuesday, your favorite day of the week, and some of your least favorite day of the week, but you still watch week after week after week and get angry. So hello to you too, because you do watch, but or listen or whatever you do with this. I know some people listen to this as a podcast. If you do listen to this just as the audio, try to peek in and see the images every so often today, because there are sort of some cool pictures that do make a point today. And why are we starting on Pinkerton Road and Jane Jensen? Well, I have the potential opportunity to interview Jane Jensen, and I am so excited about that. I almost forgot about this video today because I'm cramming. I'm trying to replay Gabriel Knight to prep for the interview. And it's just a little email interview. I don't actually get to talk to her. I don't actually get to, meet her. But I still get to correspond with her, which is exciting to me. Because, of course, Jane Jensen was the, co-head developer of King's Quest VI. Yay! And the sole head developer of Gabriel Knight. Yay! And the thing I love about people like Roberta Williams and Jane Jensen and these early video game creators, these early video game developers, is they automatically, instantly, just for existing and, by virtue of their success, put the lie to this idea that video game development is not a natural or normal place for a woman. And there are still people out there in 2015 who have their heads filled with bad science that feel like it's still even remotely factual, based in anything, to say women just aren't naturally good with computers. It's boggling to me that anybody who considers themselves intellectually driven would let that come out of their mouth with a straight face. And those people who watch to get angry are already starting to roil, right? They're already starting to go, but to study here and just study here and research and all this stuff. Well, I can show you a study that trumps your study, and this is where we have to put down the fucking studies and think for 5 minutes. When you have examples, real world examples, that show a study is wrong, well, then the study is wrong, isn't it? If I go, apples exist, and someone can say, I can show you a study that says apples don't exist, but I go, here's an apple in my freaking hand, whether it be a computer or the fruit, are you still gonna tell me there's a study that says an apple doesn't exist? Well, that's what people do with the natural state of female game developers. And I hate calling them female game developers because they are game developers. Their gender is not relevant. Is Amy Hennig or Jade Raymond a better game developer or a worse game developer because of their gender? No, they are a game developer. And like any game developer, they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses, but they've been successful and they've created product people want. So take your studies that show women in general are not good with computers. There's a lot of men as well who have no head for computers. Okay? We only need a portion of the population to be good at computers. And it doesn't make any sense. There is nothing inherently different about all female brains everywhere to account for the massive gap in hiring and interest. And that's what I want to get in today. The idea of a female game developer, women in tech, and all the crazy cross-purposes theories, and why our approach to this point not just isn't working, but has made it so the system can't work. And I'm going to call for change based on that. When you've got a system that not only doesn't work, but can't work, it's time for a new system, right? Here we go. We're going to start at the beginning of computer programming. Literally the beginning of computer programming. You want to see history's first computer programmer, at least the person that most people think of as the first computer programmer, or many do, boom, Ada freaking Lovelace, the daughter of Lord Byron. You see, mathematician, computer programmer. Okay? Computer programmer. Considered to have written instructions for the first computer program in the mid-1980s. Now, one would think that if the first computer programmer was a woman, then isn't the natural state of computer programming in the feminine sphere? Whoa, 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 whoa. No, that's an assumption. No, you can't. There's all these other computer programmers who aren't women. See, no, you're wrong. Your logic is faulty. But if we're saying that men are the default state because of prevalence, then why is there not an argument for women being the natural state based on primacy? For someone to do it first, for someone to invent it, well, it must be a natural state of affairs, right? Of course, no one thinks that. And this is the problem with these assumptions, that we go, oh, well, there's a ton of, white male computer programmers. So white male computer programmers are, obviously the default state. There's something about it that makes them better. Well, oops, more and more things are being outsourced to India. So much for the white part. And this is the problem with these assumptions. Right at the beginning, the concept of computer programming. The thing about the time that Ada Lovelace lived in, women weren't really encouraged towards these sort of things the way that men were encouraged to learn a trade. Look at the date, 1815. She was born in, right? And the thing that's unique about Ada Lovelace is, her name was actually Augusta Ada Byron, or Ada. People always make fun of the way I say my A's. Deal. Okay, just deal. They're subjective pronunciations. Bite me. She was the Countess of Lovelace. Yes, that sounds like she was born into wealth, but her circumstances were unique in that she was a legitimate child. She was the only legitimate child of Lord Byron, but her parents split only weeks after she was born. She wasn't raised in the father knows best paradigm. She had, where is this? Jumped. An unusual upbringing. It says right here, you can see right here. Ada had an unusual upbringing for an aristocratic girl. So she had access to tutors because of her money, but she also had a mother encouraging her to do this. So she was not subjected to the same sort of subtle discouragements that girls like myself who showed early preference for these sort of things. And even people, even adults at the time who thought they were encouraging girls into science and thought they were encouraging girls into maths and thought they were encouraging girls into computers were also sending signals that it was weird. Now, if you grew up the way I did, which was constant signals, which is you're allowed a certain amount of deviation from the norms of our society, but too much and you're actually risking your physical safety. If you were too weird, somebody got offended and beat you up. Okay, I mean, that was the reality I had growing up. And I was already weird in a lot of ways. I had $1 million vocabulary. I liked math and science stuff. I remember the first time I saw a computer modem. I mean, this sounds so stupid. You might hear it in my voice, but I tear up thinking about the first time I saw a modem. Those little phone cradle things? And this was the most amazing freaking Arthur C. Clarke style magical thing I'd seen in my young life. That and the baby chick incubator we had. Not because they were, cute little baby chicks. I liked watching them peck out of the eggs. I was a weird kid, okay? But why is that weird? Why was an intellectual bent in the 1980s considered weird? And why did that give me tomboy status? Well, because of social norms. People were concerned about me because I didn't want to play with other kids. I wanted my books, and I wanted my number munchers game that I could play in school but not at home because we didn't have a computer that would run it, because the Apple IIe computer was like, that how some kids push their nose up against a glass and they want something and they can't have it because it's too expensive and all that stuff. For me, it was the Apple IIe computer. But those games were just amazing to me. Stuff like Escape from Rungastan, which, oh God, is so racist by modern standards. But, we didn't know the same back then. But, games like that, and what was it? Super Snoopers or something like that. It was a detective game, and Carmen Sandiego and the Oregon Trail, and all these games are just amazing to me. But this idea that I could ever make them was not encouraged. It was, you have to go out and get a job. They were pushing girls into the hard sciences at that point. And I had a creative streak as well. And unfortunately, too often we try to make kids choose between creativity and being logical or being science driven. And the amazing thing about video games is you can do both, right? It's a logistical challenge. It's problems to solve. So you can use that scientific element of your brain. But, it's also very creative and very artistic. And there comes certain creative decisions where you have to just go, because I want to do this way. You have to own that. And that's another thing with female creativity that I personally, it's my pet peeve. And hear me out. Don't get all butthurt instantly. There's a reason for this pet peeve. When people start saying, this came to me in a dream and I was compelled to write about it, the way, Mary Shelley and numerous female authors down the road have claimed. This came to me in a dream and it just wouldn't leave me alone. To me, that it came to me in a dream is just a way of not saying, yeah, I made that and it was a conscious decision and it popped into my head. I wasn't sure why at the time, but I chose to commit that to paper, or I chose to commit that to code. And, as much as I complain about the ending of Harry Potter, I give J.K. Rowling credit for going, yeah, I did this for this reason. And this was my creative idea here. And I got this from this teacher I knew. And I got this from this person I knew. She is owning her creative decisions. She is making them a conscious act, saying, I did this. And I think that's one of the most amazing things that J.K. Rowling contributes to. And I think she said at some point something came from a dream, but she owns her creativity enough that she's a good example in that way. She's not, and there are guys that talk about muses and things like that as well. But usually when you talk to a male creator, and I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but they don't say they got it from a dream. Creativity is a conscious act. You have that spark, but then you have to put in the production and the planning and the execution, and all those things are conscious acts. And we don't encourage girls to take those steps, right? We don't encourage girls the same way. Women are encouraged to be nice. And if you want to curse your kid to mediocrity their entire freaking lives, emphasize being nice. Not fair, not thoughtful, nice. Nice is the quickest way to become overwhelmingly underachieving I can possibly think of. Because if you try to accomplish anything of any ambition or value, somebody thinks you're not nice. And if that is considered a failure, if it is driven into your head that being considered mean or not nice or inconsiderate, if that's the kiss of death as far as your worth as a human being, you're not going to accomplish very much, because people figure out that button very quickly and they manipulate you. You know, you rise through the ranks, and there's a certain point, as soon as you have to start making any sort of real decisions, someone is going to think you're an asshole. Trust me, I've been a segment producer, a line producer, an associate producer, you know, getting out, and then you get into senior producers. Oh God, when you're that number 2 person on a production, everybody thinks you're the biggest asshole on set, because you're caught, right? There's always imperfect communication. So you have to make decisions because it's your job. But there's that one tier above you that can overrule you and make you seem like a complete fucking idiot temporarily. And it happens, and you know it's always a risk when you're in that role, when you're at sort of the second tier production slot. You're on the front lines. You're the one that's saying, you guys do this, you guys do this. You're dividing the labor, you're mobilizing the troops. But you're only a colonel. And you know that the general can walk in at any time and go, nah, I don't like this, change it. And then everybody looks at you and glares daggers and grumbles at you, not so much behind your back, but to your side where you're in earshot. But any decision is still better than no decision, and you learn that very quickly, because even moving in the wrong direction is still moving, and inertia is a real thing on especially large productions. When you've got 40, 45 people working on something, the worst thing you can possibly have them do is sit around, because then they disengage. If they're going down the wrong path and have to redo something or have to go in a different direction, they're still working. They're still engaged, right? If they're just sitting around picking their nose or playing, you know, Candy Crush Saga or reading a book, they're not engaged. They're there, but they're not there mentally. And these are the challenges that girl world, the female socialization in our society, the princess mentality, for lack of a better term. I don't like saying that, because nowadays, you know, to me, princess is Wonder Woman and Xena. Princess has become something different. But you know, that passive princess that we all like to talk about it's the kiss of death in terms of leadership. It is counter to leadership, because princesses were not trained to be leaders, were they? The assumption wasn't that they were ever going to lead. The assumption was they'd end up in that number 2 slot, which is they had to make the actual eventual leader, which was going to be their husband, look good, right? And that has persisted, this idea of the unique feminine selflessness that we train girls does not prepare us for the hard decisions. Trust me, I had to learn the hard way. But in computer programming, it was not always so that computer programmers were male dominated. Back in the early days, the ENIAC days, these were computer programmers. And I've talked about this before, but I don't think this can be stressed enough. You know, these are, you know, the mothers, possibly grandmothers, metaphorically, of Roberta Williams and Jane Jensen and those programmers of the 80s and 90s that people nowadays claim either have completely forgot existed or treat them as some sort of anomaly. These are the faces of computer programmers back in the 1960s, when computer programming was considered a clerical job. You know, not a tech job, because there wasn't really a tech sector. Technology, you know, inventions were considered manual labor. This was considered clerical stream. And they were feeding punch cards into a machine, and those punch cards had to be exceptionally precise. One punch in the wrong place, forget it. Your whole thing's screwed up. And it was cards after cards. I remember there were hundreds of these blinking things. But back then, you know, so we've got the first computer programmer as an individual is a woman. Come on, cursor. there she is, first computer programmer as an individual. First computer programmers as a group. So where's this, it's not natural for women to be in tech coming from? Well, it's clearly not history. So the only thing left is societal assumptions, right? But I think there's also another element to it, that there's an element of fear involved, because I think some people there's probably been already nasty comments left. I've been talking for 20 minutes because this setup is important. It's important because we get into this paradigm, and this is part of what's getting us stuck in this whole debate and stuck in actual meaningful solutions for this conundrum. Too few women in tech, stop blaming the men. It's not the men's fault. The assumption is we went from this to the current paradigm of computer programmer equals, white dude, or in some people's thinking, misogynist neckbeard. The assumption is we got from here to there because men came in like proverbial Vikings and drove all the defenseless women's folk out. I never said that. And I don't mean that. The problem is people assume that I think that. You're a feminist. You must blame men. No, monkeys. I don't blame men. Systemic conditioning, societal conditioning isn't men, it's culture. So everybody needs to settle down and stop self-blaming. A lot of these articles, the stop blaming men, that's fear speaking. That's either I don't want to be blamed or I don't want to lose my job to let someone in. It goes back to that low status males and fear of the, you're coming in, you're a usurper. This is my job. You can't have it. No. Why does someone assume that it's going to be your job on the line? Tech is growing. We could get more women into things based on just new hires. Nobody has to get fired. And anybody who's, moderate or pragmatic about this thing knows that you don't win friends and influence people by firing their buddies. You've got to do it through hiring, not replacement. But we immediately get into this, don't blame me. Well, no, nobody's blaming you. Nobody's blaming you because, where are women getting at least 50%, if not more, of their idea of what it means to be a woman? Their mothers, not their fathers, not their brothers, not their husbands. They're examples. And we know that mentorship is a problem. We know that there are, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's move on. So we know we need more women in tech. And people are like, what? No, we don't. Nope. It's really funny how these people will throw one study at me to show that women are naturally not, adept at technology or talking about technology, not realizing they're saying this to me. I'm living proof that this isn't true. And a lot of the game developers that a lot of people worship don't code. And this idea that game developer equals coder is silly. But we need more women in technology. Whenever something is imbalanced, it's an indication that something is not necessarily something is not, but there's a high probability that you are missing some really good ideas through artificial gatekeeping. When you have a low amount of diversity, there's an implication that you are afraid of dissenting ideas. And notice I didn't say it's absolutely guaranteed that's true. But if you've got everybody that thinks relatively the same, and I'm not saying that people think the same because they're men. I think that people hire based on people who have similar attitudes towards things. And in the case of video games, the shared experience tends to be among white men. And there's various reasons for that, but I'm not saying that people are hiring men because they assume they think alike. What I'm saying is that people are hiring people who think like them, and they happen to be men. And I hope that distinction is clear. And the problem with that is the worst thing, you don't need to hire somebody who thinks like you. There has to be basic core moral agreements, of course. I mean, anybody who's played Dungeons and Dragons knows you can't have, a chaotic, evil person in the party and expect it to go well when you're being led by, a lawful good character. There's just going to be a ton of infighting. And eventually people will rebel and split, and the party will split up, and, you have to craft your game for the alignments you've got. And sometimes that can be really fun, but you don't tend to get a lot of stuff done. But you've got to have differences of opinion. You have to have differing viewpoints, and you have to have a situation, a system that doesn't crumble at the first sign of dissent, because that's how you get innovation. You need new ideas coming in. You need new perspectives and new ways of thinking about things. But the problem with tech is this article, here's the real reason there aren't any more women in tech. This article, there's one paragraph in this that explains the problem brilliantly. And you notice they have female tech leaders because, hey, trot them out like prize ponies. That helps so much. I'm just being bitter at that moment. Ignore that comment. So what this article says amazingly is that on one hand, you've got women saying we're not being considered, and on the other, companies are saying we want women. And you see this fight going on over and over and over again on the internet every day. Some woman speaks, right there, I'll highlight it. Some woman speaks to her individual experience of not getting the offers, of, nobody's knocking on my door. And then you get some VP going out there and saying, oh no, we want women. We want to hire women. We just can't find them. And so one side of the whole thing will focus only on the women who say they're not getting the opportunities. And another side will focus only on the companies saying, oh no, we want more women. What's really crucial here, guys, is the disconnect between those two sides, because both of them are telling the truth. And this article brings up the concept of Burdian's Bridge. It's a workplace equivalent of Burdian's Bridge. What's Burdian's Bridge? Well, we're going to get all philosophical with y'all. And it's something called a sophism. But Socrates wants to cross a river and comes to a bridge guarded by Plato. Let's say a female game dev wants to get a job and comes to an interview being guarded by HR. HR says, female game developer, if in the first proposition which you utter you will speak the truth, I will permit you this interview. But surely, if you speak falsely, I will deny you the job. Female game developer, you will deny me the job. And you can read that that's not actually it. But that's actually what we've got going on. We've got basically the industry going, if you earn it, if you earn it, we'll give you a job. But, if you're not good enough, well, then we'll throw you in the water. And the female games dev says, I'm not good enough. And then you have a paradox. Because if it's a truthful statement, like, Socrates is testing Plato's, basically, Socrates is saying with his statement, well, you've given something conditional that has a flaw in the condition, and boom, here it is. So, if the industry is sending the message, we'll take people on merit, but if you're not good enough, you shall not pass. And female dev's going, I'm not good enough? And then the industry gets into the same situation that Plato is in, which is if they are good enough, why aren't they getting the opportunities? That means that Plato or the industry statement is invalid. But if the game dev is going, I'm not good enough, oh, here's a job anyway because you told the truth, well, now Plato's a liar or the industry's a liar. And this is the problem we have. And I can just hear, I can smell the burning in people's brains with people trying to find a single flaw in that, people trying to find a single fly in that ointment so that they can go, no, that's not it. I have a study that says you're wrong. No, guys. This is philosophy. This is Platonic. This is Socrates, okay? They didn't have studies. This is a thought experiment. The idea of these Socratic conundrums, the idea of these sophisms is to stop and think about it for a minute. The purpose is not to be right. There's no right or wrong answer here. The purpose is to let your brain work on it for a while. And this is what we're not doing in gaming when it comes to this issue. We are not stopping for a minute and putting our studies aside and our research aside and our focus groups aside and our stress tests and our beta tests and our bug reports and stopping and actually thinking for ourselves as an individual and going, yes, there is a conundrum here. There is a disconnect between the results we claim to want and the results we are getting. And in any other aspect of game design, we would go, a game maker says, I want to create a roguelike that's not frustrating and really fun to play for casuals. The industry's going to go, good luck with that. Because, come on, that's the minute you put those two conditions in, it's not a roguelike. It's not just to say, I want to do something. You have to do it to create a game that people are going to, review well and going to want to play. So why aren't we putting this in? People are going, you're asking for equality of outcome. You're that's about quality of outcome. No, monkeys. No, come. Don't throw that poo in your hand just yet. I am not saying that equality of outcome should be expected. I'm saying that there's a disconnect between what the industry claims to want and the results. That's a different argument, isn't it? I'm not saying the industry should want more women. I'm saying the industry is saying it wants more women. Well, get more fucking women. If you're serious about it, there's plenty of qualified women. Now, there's plenty of men out there that can't find jobs too. I mean, the number one thing people tell you in game design is, great, you've got your degree. Be prepared to wait and work on your portfolio. Because that thing you're getting right out of school, not good enough because everyone's got those projects. And the system's failing people. The system's failing men and women alike. It's not a good system, the way we train people for careers in game design. It's getting almost as bad as training people for careers in television. The only thing that makes it better is that people actually are hiring in Canada in game design. The problem is now in TV is, and I know there are people out of work in game design too, don't get me wrong, but there's so many people out of work in the Canadian TV industry that you've got to be insane to try to go into it now. There's so many people with so much experience looking for jobs that those people fresh out of school, well, they're going to really have a hard time. Whereas, the Canadian game industry is adding jobs. Now, the problem is it necessarily matching what, is somebody's skills? No. I had a brain fart there. I've been talking for a while. I'm going to wrap up. And I like to think of assembling a team whenever I work on something like casting a play, like casting. Let's just say casting. If you've got your male lead, for instance, you no longer need somebody who fulfills the role of a male lead. You know, nobody thinks it's strange that when you're casting for a creative project, you need the male lead, the female lead, the sidekick, the girlfriend, or whatever. There are specific roles that have inherent qualities to them. But when we go out to the world of work, all of a sudden we're supposed to be completely colorblind and completely gender blind, instead of going, wait a minute, we've assembled a team of all white men. Something isn't right here. I mean, you wouldn't even do that on a jury in 2015, right? Because there's two opposing sides, and the prosecution is going to want to nail the defendant to, you know, the wall, and the defense wants to get their client, you know, exonerated, so, or at least found not guilty. They don't need exoneration. But, you know, you're going to want a mixed bag because the defense is going for a hung jury, if not an acquittal, right? They want that diversity of opinion. And it's so strange that we're like, yeah, diversity's great, yay, diversity, but we're not seeing it. So, logically, if you go back to the Buridan's Bridge. Did I say Buridan? Buridan's Bridge. This is what's going on in gaming right now. Gaming is making statements that are very simple to lock up. It's very simple to say, you'll throw me in the water and make a liar out of the entire industry. You know, the answer is, we'll hire women if they're good enough. You know, then a woman steps up and goes, well, I'm good enough. And then it becomes, well, prove it. Well, that's not what you said. You said you'll hire women if we're good enough. Well, I'm good enough. Give me the opportunity. Well, you have to prove it. Well, you didn't say that. You said we want women. And obviously I'm oversimplifying here. But what I'm hoping that people who get really hot under the collar about this issue can understand is the sheer amount of frustration in that women who are looking for work, women who are trying to get those opportunities, the issue is not that we're not getting the jobs. The issue is we're not even getting the opportunities to apply. People keep saying we're looking. Well, guess what happens when you apply to those companies that claim they're looking for women? You get no assistance. You get no communication. You're flinging resumes into a vacuum. Like, have you ever tried applying to one of these major companies? It's all automated. You're all talking to computers. You don't even get a real human person responding to you saying, thank you for your application. We've received it. It's all computers. It is the most impersonal, confusing, just void you will experience. And yes, that's the hiring process for everybody. But it becomes exceptionally frustrating when, you know, the industry saying we want to bring women in, and women encounter this system that, feeling like you're going through it, yes, it's intended to keep everyone out, but women are encountering, because they're a woman, people feel, well, this is a system that's designed to keep me out, because people can only experience the world as themselves, right? And people get the sense that they're being lied to, but they're not. It's a situation like Plato and Socrates here. And the first thing we have to do to untangle this knot is recognize that this is what's happening. And we can't recognize that this is happening if we get into the feedback loop of, well, there's not enough women in technology. Well, women aren't naturally good at computers. Well, that's not true, because Ada Lovelace and ENIAC girls. Well, we're not forcing women out. It's not men's fault. And that's the thing we have over and over and over and over again. Wasn't me. It's a freaking Shaggy song. You know, women aren't getting hired. It wasn't me. But we have the resume. It wasn't me. You know, like, it's a Shaggy song. Our hiring principles in the video game industry are a Shaggy song. It's a friggin' pop reggae hit that drunk people dance to and then puke and fall over and feel awful about it the next day. You know, frat boys are singing along to the hiring practices of the video game industry. We have to decide that's not good enough. And we have to collectively decide we want to do something about it, not because it's humanitarian and not because it's the right thing to do or we're white knighting or we're somehow good people. We have to do it so we're not like Plato. We're more like Socrates. We're consistent in the messages we deliver. If we want the best product, we have to go about getting the best product. And the industry has said over and over and over again, the best product involves women. Well, go out and find women then, or you're not getting the best product. And that's not good enough. This is supposed to be about merit. This is supposed to be about excellence. So if you know you're not getting the best product because of a lack of anyone, you could say the same thing about racial diversity as well. Or heck, you know, I think people with disabilities should be part of the process because that means games aren't inherently ableist just because people didn't know better, right? Different religions, so you're not being ignorant about something. I mean, Ubisoft's got a lot of problems, but these aren't theirs because if you walk into an Ubisoft office, it's not the stereotype, right? Now they just have to make sure their games aren't buggy. So hopefully I've laid out my premise here. And hopefully you guys see that there's some merit to it because we have to move past this loop of complaints. Complaints don't get anybody a job. Complaints don't create a great game. Complaints just temporarily absolve you from having to do something real about an issue. And doing something real about an issue starts with all of us. And the first thing we have to do is stop relying so heavily on studies. Stop relying so heavily on data and think. Real self-examination. Because every study has its limits.